Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast where a behavioral scientist examines what it's like to live a humorous life. Glimpse into the lives of the funniest people in entertainment, business, and science as your host, Dr. Peter McGraw, explores their habits, motivations, and secrets to success. Get ready to fire up your brain and your funny bone. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to I'm Not Joking, the podcast that looks at the lives of funny people. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Matt Frederickson. Matt is a retired U.S. Army Black Hawk pilot instructor. He currently works in the UAE as a helicopter pilot instructor also. And I'm going to do something a little different. Instead of continuing on with the bio, I'm going to read a quote from one of my former student, Brandon Schaefer's emails, who introduced me to Matt. He says, Pete, Matt was one of my Black Hawk instructors when I was stationed in Clarksville, Tennessee. We have some great Nashville memories together, but he lives in Dubai now. He's one of the funniest and most offensive people I've ever met and might have some insights for you in Dubai. If he offers you absinthe, just say no. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is great. So we are recording from Dubai, from the Dubai International Financial Center.
That's it, yep, DIFC.
Yes, DIFC. You were kind enough to come over here on your way home from work.
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
You were flying today.
Yes.
I have so many questions for you, but I always start with the same question. If you weren't a helicopter pilot and a helicopter pilot instructor, what would you be?
What would I be? Probably homeless or in prison.
Go on.
Well, the reason I originally joined the Army was because as a child, we played with guns and made homemade explosive devices. And, I looked across the board and it just naturally appealed to me as an adventurer. I wanted an adventure. So I chose the military.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a pilot, but it seemed so far-fetched to become like a fighter pilot in the Air Force or the Navy or whatever. It seemed like an unachievable dream at the time. And so I guess I probably watched too many Rambo movies, so I joined the Army.
Okay.
And in the Army, I wasn't accepted originally as a pilot. I started out as an infantry soldier. I did that for a few years in the 101st Airborne. And then finally got off my ass, I guess, and submitted my application to become a pilot and got accepted. People
have said way worse things on this podcast than you. So you're
I guess
safe.
We should have asked about the vocabulary prior.
It's fine. I assume people will be PG-13, but when you deal with comics, they're not. So I want to back up a little bit. So Top Gun had an effect on you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah.
And as a child, some kids played with trucks and cars. Mm-hmm. I played with airplanes. So it was just some, I don't know where that desire to be an aviator came from, but it was always there.
Okay. And where was this? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Iowa.
Okay.
In Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Absolutely landlocked. There's really not a whole lot there. It's a lot of farming, and I really knew no other people in the military besides my grandfather who fought in World War II. Like, it was just, it came from nowhere. I can't explain why I had this singular desire to be in the military and to be a military aviator.
And so you graduated high school?
Yep.
Went right in?
Yeah, I actually joined the military before I graduated high school. I was such an idiot. I thought it'd be so much funner to get yelled at by a drill instructor and sleep on the ground on my summer vacation and go party like everyone else,
Okay.
And so, I actually joined when I was 17. My mother had to sign the papers. And they literally are like, yeah, all we have is infantry. We're really sorry.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, shit, that's what I wanted. Thank you.
Okay. You're an Army recruiter's dream.
I rolled in there. I'm sure it was the easiest recruit probably they had. But I never lost sight of being an aviator. And, I particularly like helicopters too. And I already knew that the Army pulled its pilots from inside the Army for the most part, probably 99%.
Okay.
So that was always the ultimate objective.
All right. So walk me through this a little bit. So, I mean, obviously I'm familiar from the movies and books and television about boot camp. You said is it 121st
101st Airborne
101st.
where I ended up.
So you start by learning to jump out of planes.
Well, ironically, the 101st Airborne is considered Air Assault Division, so we're capable of moving the entire division by helicopter.
I see.
So even though historically it was an airborne division way back from World War II, the whole Band of Brothers invasion of Normandy and mainland Europe, but it transitioned in Vietnam to helicopters.
I see.
So it became Air Mobile to Air Assault / Airborne. So we still hold the Air Assault, or the Airborne tab, but we don't actually jump out of airplanes.
Okay. I just was rewatching Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket.
Yes.
That movie is fascinating because it feels sort of like a double feature, right? So it has were those Army?
Those are Marines.
They're Marines. Okay, so Marine training, basic training.
Like I said, I joined the infantry as the same thing. They're like 00 Bravo. You made it. I was 11 Bravo.
Okay, so it feels the same.
Same exact. When I joined, the basic training was very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, just getting yelled at and being called a piece of garbage. And just screamed at. If you made eye contact with the drill sergeant in attention, they'd be like, "What are you, some kind of homo?" And get in your face.
Yeah.
And
has the Army cleaned some of that homophobic stuff
absolutely. up? Absolutely. When I went to aviation, I actually had, it was a culture shock, to say the least, from infantry to aviation. You had to deal with people a totally different way. Yeah.
I can imagine. Then the movie obviously shifts to Vietnam, and it's disturbing and gritty.
But, the Full Metal Jacket, I believe it. Although, there's portions that are embellished, but it's the same. Warriors, I think throughout time have probably had the same really disturbing humor. I always laugh at the part where they say we need to play cowboy. We're playing cowboys and Indians. We're playing cowboys and VC.
Right.
And it's just that same. I have a million stories myself of my own combat experiences, or things that would be, so it would be inappropriate and disturbing are humorous.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. I have so many things I want to chat with you about. So, that movie obviously does have a lot of gallows humor, but also, the other thing that was striking about it was sort of how terrified the guys were at various points. There's a tendency, I think, in film to make these guys sort of very heroic all the time and very badass and aggressive, and it was, the fear they had was sort of palpable at times in that movie.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you finish up basic training, now you're in the infantry, but you want to make the jump to pilot, right? You don't want to be jumping, you don't want to be being transported, you want to be doing the transporting.
Yeah.
And you were how old?
Joined when I was 17, and then I was 19 in Fort Campbell. And, since we flew on the helicopters all the time, and they moved us around, and, we would freeze our asses off for literally a week, getting rained on. And, you think you're going to die, but you don't. And one day I was just like, I'm so cold, and I was like, man, if I could just stick my feet up my own ass to warm them up, I would. That's how retarded and cold it is.
Okay.
And we get on the aircraft, and I look at the crew chief and the pilots, and it's all warm in there. And they're going to land and drop us off somewhere. We're going to walk till it's daylight again, and then hit some objective, And we know before we get halfway there, they're going to be back home drinking a beer. I'm like, man, I'm retarded. I need to just do this and put in my application. And so I did. To make a long story short, I was eventually accepted. It's a process, but
what are they looking for? And what is an application to go to? It's flight school.
So Army flight school. To be a warrant officer. Okay. It's the same as a captain or lieutenant, but captains and lieutenants. There's one or two in the company. One captain, two lieutenants. Okay. They manage, administer. They're more of an administrator. They're still pilots. Everything they manage the company. Warrant officers, we're just bred. We're an officer just the same, but we're technical tactical experts on the employment of the aircraft and advise the commander on how to best do that. We fly all the time, and that's our career path, is just as pilots, more or less, and mentors to the junior trainers, to the other aviators.
Okay.
But a packet, it's just a bunch of garbage, honestly. I just think a lot of it is just if they see you're going to go through the nonsense of doing it.
Okay.
You need letters of recommendation from your commander, another field grade aviator, like a high ranking aviator, experienced aviator. Just a bunch of nonsense paperwork, resume, a little paper on why you want to be an aviator.
Seriously, this sounds like what my MBAs go through.
Yeah, you do a FAST test called a Flight Aptitude Standardization Test, something like that.
It's like a simulator?
No, it's just a written test.
Okay.
And basically what they did was after World War II, they took the pilots that lived, because, it was really, if you lived, you must have been a decent pilot because the attrition rates were so high.
Right.
And half the test, psychologists went in and found out what made these guys successful. But literally half the test is, are your parents still married? How do you drive? Fast, slow, too fast, but safe? Half the test is just those things. What size of town did you grow up in? And it's just psychological. And the other is a battery of tests, like moving a dot inside of a circle just using symbols.
Okay.
And symbols may not be relative to left, right, up, down.
Okay.
So you move a dot inside the circle, and you literally have 5 seconds per question. So I don't think anyone ever finishes.
I see. So they're measuring, they want to get issues of stability, good judgment.
And portions of it, just a normal thing you'd find in like an aptitude test.
Okay.
If you pull this pulley, which weight goes off the ground.
Yeah, brains, horsepower. I just always talk about, does this person have enough horsepower?
Yeah, it's really bizarre. You can only take the test once. You only take it twice.
Okay.
If you pass the first time, that's the score you have forever.
Okay.
I think most people get like 110. I think I got like a 116. You hear some stories of guys allegedly they got like a 130 something. Okay. I'll be honest, I don't remember all the details, but it's just a nonsense test.
Okay.
A lot of the application is just nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just seeing if you'll do it. You apply, and they have a board, and you look on the computer and see if you made it.
Okay.
Your name's either in select or non-select.
Okay. And you got in first?
Yeah, actually I applied twice.
Okay. First time, you were saying earlier when you write out, you did not get in. Is that what it was?
Yeah, well, you just join the regular Army.
I see.
But once I decided to apply, I applied the first time, came up as like qualified but non-select for nobody knows why, and no one knows anything. So I redid everything and did it again in the next board. At that time, the boards were 6 months apart.
Okay.
So yeah, I got selected.
Okay.
And then you go to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and do their whole assessment there.
Okay. And more attrition?
Yeah, I think most everyone made it through they call it Warrant Officer Candidate School. And it's like basic training. They yell at you and come in and destroy your room. But it's a different style. As a warrant officer, you're supposed to be like a tactical expert. You should be able to, like, if there's a new helicopter, they hand you the book. And you need to know everything about it and teach everyone else how to do it and employ it. So that's kind of the school, is they hand you a book on how to fold your socks and hang everything in your uniform is very, very particular. Has to be certain measurements, the whole thing. And they don't teach you how to do any of it. They literally hand you the book.
Okay.
And it's kind of funny because warrant officers are generally known throughout the Army as non-conformers, or like in this middle ground. And transition, we kind of are a mediator between the enlisted side and the officer side. And when, a lot of people get certain things out of warrant officer school, but really what it taught me was like how to beat the system. Like it really teaches you, like, I don't know if it's the intention. I don't think it is, but that's what they teach you, kind of how to beat the system is what I got out of it. And you do not have enough time to do all the things they want you to do.
Okay.
It's impossible. And and if it's not done right, you come back in from, you do academics during the day. You come back in, your bed's flipped over, everything's all destroyed, everything's yanked out of your wall locker. So it's like when you wake up on an exact time and you have exactly like 7 minutes to shower and do this stuff. So the whole course is just a bunch of dudes running around, brushing your teeth while you walk through the water for 2 seconds.
Right.
Have to fold all your nonsense just right, but you don't have enough time to do it. So you realize, on Monday, they can look at 5 things, right?
Okay.
Last time they looked at this first, so maybe I just won't even do this today. I'll deal with it tomorrow. I'm going to take the chance of getting in trouble.
Right.
Just like if you and then when you make a mistake, you have to write a memo, which you also don't have time to do. And you really only have 3 minutes to write a memo to this perfect format, 1 inch from each side, and it has to say this. your name a certain way, and it has to say what you did wrong, how you're going to fix it. But I realized, too, also that you don't have enough time to make this memo correctly and write something substantive. But I realized, man, these guys have like 50 memos a day to write. I bet you they don't read them. So I would just write a bunch of nonsense, not worried if it was even right, or because at first you focus on the formatting, and of course you can't get it done in time. Then you have to write a memo on how you did, why you did
the memo right.
Even if it's completely fucked up, just turn it in. And the worst case scenario is they make you do it again tomorrow in your lunch break.
Right.
You get a chance to do any corrective memos during your lunch break, or they don't catch it, and you just slide through the cracks.
Yeah. This is, so in behavioral economics, we call this satisficing.
Yeah.
Right? So, there are people who are maximizers and people who are satisficers. And there are conditions in which allow you to be a maximizer, but other conditions that don't allow you to be a maximizer. So time deadlines, for instance, where things just have to be good enough. And people are pretty good at making those trade-offs at times, so there can be what we call adaptive, right? And so sounds like you had to be quite adaptive, and the people who succeed are most adaptive, right? They're willing to make those trade-offs. And
especially, this course has gone on since the 60s, since Vietnam, since Army helicopters have evolved. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a conundrum, too, because the people that most likely to be selected to be pilots are usually meticulous.
Yeah, conscientiousness.
So they want to do their best at all the time. And you realize that sometimes, and I think it translates well into the field, like when you deploy to combat and you're flying helicopters, that sometimes, like you said, it just has to be good enough. It needs to be precise. We say aviation is a precision sport. Okay. But you also need to be able to throw away what's not important, and because it's a dynamic environment where there's this huge symphony of things going on, these physiological things, and accomplishing a mission and piloting the aircraft and the radios and the technology. You need to know what to throw away and what's important at that right moment. So I think it actually works.
What do you mean by physiological?
Physiological meaning that you don't have the same sensation. You can't. The aircraft's loud. All you can hear through the world is through your headsets and the radio. You're away from the ground. You're traveling at high speeds. It's not physiological. The noise, the vibration. You might be operating at dark.
Physical stress.
Stress, yeah. So, there's a lot of physiological factors that work at the same time as doing your job and piloting the aircraft and communicating to the ground force commander and making sure the mission, which you're just facilitating the mission. The key players. The infantry or special operations unit on the ground that's going after the bad guys.
I see. So let's jump ahead to. We can get back. I want to get back to the dark comedy stuff. But so you're an instructor now. You're a teacher. Mm-hmm. Do you have a teaching philosophy? Do you have a? You know what I mean? Like, tell me a little bit. I have various. I teach. I taught Brandon. I have. I have a style. I have things that I want to try to get done. I have to imagine that you're able to put a little bit of your own customization or your own personality into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Through our own experiences, we all focus on different things.
I mean, I watched Top Gun, so I know Jester was different than the other guy or whatever.
Everyone has different things that's important to them. And usually, some people might focus on different academic topics that are important to them. Okay. Maybe systems in the aircraft, how the engine works. Some people might focus on aerodynamics. Okay. I don't know why. Maybe they're previous instructors, or oftentimes it's some experience you had. You made a mistake somewhere, so you wanted the main key. At least for me, I was never an instructor at a schoolhouse. I was always a unit instructor. So my job was to prepare everyone to deploy to combat, Okay. And so while we're in between deployments, we have a training ramp up to deployment, and then we come back from deployment. It's a reset. Mm-hmm. Aircraft go getting fixed. Mm-hmm. They go into like a huge maintenance schedule. We all go on leave, and then it starts right over again. So in that sense, I guess all my focus was always on employment, like how to employ the aircraft effectively, how to take it and land on the side of a mountain, or assault operations, how to help the ground commander do his job, and all those things that come with it. So, but I think if there's anything people have told me, and I think Brandon even said this himself. I don't remember his exact terms, that on the ground, I joke around and everything, but we get in the aircraft, I think I'm pretty serious.
I was going to ask about that.
And even I think Brandon said it one time. He's like, "Yeah, I thought you were a real dick," and then I got to know you.
Okay.
So, but it's because we don't have time. You don't have so much time on the aircraft, and all these training objectives have to be complete. So you don't have time to mess around with it. You get in and you expect the pilot that you're instructing to have been prepared. Like, you say, "Hey, this is what I need from you before," and you go right into it, and it's just fast. And if you've been through flight school, and you've been through walk school, and been through all these other training, it shouldn't be unusual. People say flight school is like drinking from a fire hose, and it's the same thing. I don't have time. I'm not saying I never joke, and we never have a good time, but for the most part, it's just while you're in the seat in the aircraft, you don't have a lot of time to do other things other than what to accomplish those specific training objectives.
Are there inside jokes, or is there there's lawyer jokes, lawyers at the bottom of the ocean, etc. Are there helicopter pilot jokes, like something that only helicopter pilots would get?
Oh, geez, I'm sure. I can't think of it.
No, that's fine. I'm just curious. There has to be.
My favorite is the one I always thought was funny that I can think of is like, "Don't tell my mom I'm a pilot. She thinks I'm a piano player in a whorehouse." Okay. I always thought that one was funny. It's from a Vietnam pilot,
I guess passed down.
Jokes about, and I guess one thing I do say a lot, in the aircraft is people get in a hurry, they get in a hurry, and I was like, "Man, don't rush the scene of the accident,"
Okay.
Just that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's nice. This dark comedy idea is an interesting one. So there's research that shows nurses, EMTs, folks who work in emergency rooms. There's not research on it that I know of, but I'm sure people who work in funeral homes, prisons, etc., make jokes about things that other folks would find really quite disturbing, appalling. And there's a scene in Full Metal Jacket where they're posing with a dead Viet Cong soldier and making jokes about it and taking pictures and laughing and all these kinds of things. I have a hunch why that stuff happens, but I'm curious what your experience was with that. You were a pilot during wartime. What's your reaction to that? I mean, I'm sure you saw lots of it, heard lots of it.
Yeah, we're involved in it. I've said probably horrible things too. And I think Full Metal Jacket is an accurate representation. Those things really happened. The Marines call that a Marine Corps birthday party. I think they even said that in the movie.
What is that? I missed that.
Just where they prop the bodies up.
Oh, I see.
And is it? Of course, it's not okay. But again, I don't want to just say it's a coping mechanism, because I don't know, the things that I've seen that are that would be completely inappropriate back here. They were legitimately funny at the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know particularly why that is, but I always think that there's all this talk about PTSD and this and that and that and this, and I think the people that have the problems with those things are that carry their morality that you would have, your way of doing things, have from Middle America to combat, and you just can't do that. It's just not. They're not compatible. You have to have a different set, not of values, but perceptions of identity.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was involved in a scenario where they were on a machine gun in Overwatch on a battle early in Iraq, and they just have me positioned perfectly where they were looking down the road, and this is where the enemy moving through the city to attack the Americans on the other side.
Okay.
And so he gunned some fighters down in the street. And some kids run out, grab the rifle, and run back the other way.
Okay.
Well, obviously he knows what they're doing. They sent the kids out to grab the gun to take back so another fighter can arm himself and go fight the Americans. And him and his assistant gunner say, "Well, what happens when they come out?" He's like, "I'm going to shoot them," And he did. And he had a hard time with that and struggled with it. Really, had a difficulty until he finally went to like a psychologist or a counselor or whatever. And the counselor's like, would you do that in America? He says, no, of course I would never do that. He's like, but you did it there. But, did it save lives? Was it ultimately the right thing? Did you come to those realizations? Of course it's not good.
Right.
But did it do good? Well, if you want to save American lives, yes. It's a conundrum, and it's a personal thing, and a personal thing everyone has to deal with. But, they had parents, and where were their parents? Would you as a parent send your kid out, hey, go grab that rifle from your Uncle Ahmed's dead body and bring it back so we can fight the Americans? Well, that's irresponsible. So, it's a bigger picture than just, did you hurt? They chose to be combatants at that point. But, you can't carry your normal morals to war. And I think to make things simple as a coping mechanism, you've come up with really, disturbing humor to make light of these situations that might otherwise be tragic. And I think we all have them.
Oh, yeah. I think that's... I think the takeaway from this work is there's nothing wrong with these people who are making jokes at these seemingly inappropriate things. And the reason is, this is my belief, this is just theoretical at this point, is, so some of it, sure, is coping. Like, some of it very clearly is a way to deal with tragedy, a way to deal with stress, adversity, and so on. And that's typically a pretty healthy thing to do. At a pretty previous podcast, I was talking about post-traumatic growth, right? That actually some people go through these kinds of things and as a result are better off than they were before. But, some of this is just a normalization of the abnormal. So the work that I've done has looked at, and you did your homework and as the conscientious pilot that you are.
I wanted to make sure what I was getting into here.
So you watched my TEDx talk, which talks about a theory of humor, and that the idea that we laugh at things that are wrong yet okay, right? Wrong yet okay, and so, or as I call them, benign violations. Well, this is pretty easy way to it's a pretty easy way to think about this. Like, so if a world that is wrong, right, that is filled with mayhem, which is filled with pain and suffering, becomes normalized, becomes a regular part of your life, part of your job, a part of this different identity that you have as a emergency room nurse or a mortician, or a member of the military, well, now that's ripe to be laughing about things, in part because they're, yes, that they're wrong. They don't cease to be wrong. None of this it never becomes totally okay to kill another person or to, to have to deal with someone who's been badly injured or, has died. But when you do that regularly, one of the amazing things about human beings is their ability to adapt. Like both, so that the good side is we can adapt to bad things. The bad thing is we adapt to good things. But it's only the adaptation to bad things that can lead to comedy, And so I think that it's just the people who judge and feel upset about that just lack the perspective that what these people are doing is actually is as fundamental to being human as experiencing joy or pride or embarrassment or regret. Like, it's just part of our...
Exactly. It's people without those experiences, they can't appreciate where it comes from. And, one of the things that me and my friends, I guess, talk about, because we've talked about the same thing about, the sixth sense of humor and this and that. It's like, but if you didn't do that, it would almost probably mean you had a problem. You're a sociopath. You felt nothing about it, At least the outlet of humor is obviously it's a natural emotional response to these things.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No worries. And like I said, like we all have these experiences, and they come from nowhere too. That's the funny thing. And I always remember one particular experience that caught my attention, and it was a time in Iraq when the roadside bombs were...
Oh, right, I remember all that.
Were killing a lot of Americans. It was a real problem. So it came down to, and the Iraqis well knew as well through the police and everything that, hey, if you're on the side of the road with a shovel, you're a target. Like it's, we have specific rules of engagement, the criteria at which we can engage another person with deadly fire. And there was such a problem that if you're digging on the side of the road, then you could be engaged. Okay. And so,
because that's such a high correlation with
and most Iraqis should know probably shouldn't dig on the side of the road because you're going to look like you're putting a roadside bomb, right? So it was time, and we observed our flight observed an individual on the road with a shovel hiding behind some bushes, and so we engaged him and of course killed the individual. And it came back later, as a kid. Okay. I was like a 16-year-old kid. And everyone's like, I go, well, we're operating under your rules. Like that was Matt's decision to do this, or, this was the U.S. military's decision that he met the criteria, And there was a lot of trouble, and we were getting frustrated about it. And then it came out like, he's just a 16-year-old kid, and he was planting trees. That's why I had a shovel, and those were the trees he was planting on the side of the road. And you guys shot him, and one of the pilots was like, "Fuck! Like how was I supposed to know Iraq celebrates Arbor Day?"
I see.
And it's a really horrible thing. And I've actually told that joke and the story, and and most people in the military laugh,
Right, and most people not in the military.
Anyone else finds it horrific. And it's a great way to not get invited back to the dinner party.
Right.
So you have to be very careful. And, and it's funny because 22's in the military. Most of my friends are military guys, and we all do the same things. We all get it. And, lots of special ops friends, and they're like, they joke about PTSD, and they're like, man, I don't need meds. I need the doctor to give me a prescription for a 24-pack a week, Okay. And then I come here to Dubai, especially I came right out of the army here to Dubai, and I'm downtown with, there's 200 different countries represented in the city,
Yeah, it's really amazing how diverse the city is.
Yeah, you have to, I think, and I never really paid a lot of attention, but I was reading one of your papers, and you talked about you get the audience, you have to know your audience. And it's certainly true, you have to be careful, you have to be careful to not, because, it's to not offend people, to not upset them, if you want to coexist.
Just to be compassionate, right? You know what I mean? Like to go through life without doing harm. Yeah, I understand. I mean, I get this sometimes in my class, where I tease folks or just straight out give them a hard time. And sometimes I'm doing it for entertainment value to make the class lively and enjoyable. And sometimes I'm doing it because I want accountability. And it's, the key is like I would rather upset someone because I want to have accountability than to entertain, And,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about comedy and humor in Dubai. You've been here how long?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. Happy here?
Yeah. It's very interesting.
It's a fascinating place. Yeah. And I was kind of like poking around. It's funny that there are places where it's sort of hard to find comedy. So I was in New Zealand, and the Kiwis are incredibly funny, friendly people. But in the South Island, damned if I could find any comedy or comedians. I've had more luck here. Actually, I have a podcast set up with a comedian later in the week. But yeah, I mean, certainly I think that on one hand, like being multicultural is sort of good for comedy, right? Like it helps to have an outsider perspective if you want to make jokes about a place. On the other hand, it hurts when it comes to the audience, as you were reflecting back some of my work, right? So if humor comes from perceptions that something is wrong yet okay, well, now it really helps if the audience all agrees that X is wrong and okay, right? Like that it has to be in both of those things. And when you have a diverse audience, whether it be age, gender, culture, it's hard for everybody to agree on what's wrong and what's okay. And so that I think limits those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because as I said before, there's 200 some I don't actually remember the exact number, almost 200 nationalities represented in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're out, usually I'm one of the only Americans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't met many Americans.
There's not many here, but lots of British. I mean, but like on the weekend, any group that we would have would be French, Norwegian, British, of course, Australian, German, just a very wide mix.
Yeah, I've met a bunch of Indian guys
lots
already.
Of Indians here. And and we all have different perceptions of humor. So, and sometimes they clash, even among Westerners, you would think, an American and a British person we have similar cultures.
Sure, yeah.
But we don't always share humor. And it's actually kind of funny that what I found is the way we share and express our humor can offend each other quite easily. A lot of people say, especially Americans, it's a British humor because they give each other a hard time. That's what they do. But if you just meet someone for the first time and, they talk a bunch of trash about you, like, or America, or how you talk, or, how you use the language, you'd be like, who's this guy? I just met him. So you have to have this thick skin and kind of appreciate other people's culture, how they interpret things.
So Brandon, you were saying everybody loves Brandon.
Yeah. Brandon's an interesting person who's able to easily cross different characters of people. Yeah,
I could see that having him in my class as a student. But he says that people either love you or hate you.
Yeah, that's his words. Yeah, because,
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean...
And are you okay with it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm who I am, I like to... I don't say I don't like to be offensive, but I like to push the barriers,
okay.
And when it works, it's fun. It's fun to, I wouldn't say be offensive. That's not the objective.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun just to push... the dynamic of people. I find people interesting. That's, I think, why I love this town. There's so many different people. I find people interesting and to challenge them instead of just agreeing with everything they say. You can say different things that may be on the edge for them. And I don't have a problem with it because I am who I am. I don't want to put on a facade or a face. I mean, I can, in the right scenarios, everyone can.
Right.
But that's no fun. It's no fun being with a group of people and you agree with them about everything they have to say. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to be friends and not necessarily agree with everything.
Yeah. So you were saying, when you were really young, you kind of combative, right? Playing war, playing army, right? Blowing things up, and so on. And then you go in the army, you become a pilot, right? Do you think it's the same personality trait, right? That is you're willing to bump up against things in life that are scary and that are uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so it's the same concept. You're not afraid of the potentiality for conflict, But at the same time, the other half of the story is that, the things I say or my joke about, or people ask me a question about something and I'm like, and give them an honest answer. It also builds strong friendships too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like Brandon, I was flattered. He said I was the funniest person you know, because I just remember it as just a bunch of nonsense, like us being out, a bunch of nonsense and bringing a huge bottle of absinthe I smuggled into the country, and
breaking rules again, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the research is pretty clear on this, is that the funniest people also risk being the most upsetting people, comics or otherwise, right? So, because, humor plays on arousal, right? It plays on these things that are threatening, that are wrong, that are inappropriate, right? So it's almost, so we, in the humor code, we talk about these two methods of creating comedy. One we call the Seinfeld method, which is you take something that seems benign and you point out the violation there. And the nice thing about the Seinfeld method is that when you fail, you create a kind of pallid, emotionless reaction. The audience yawns, right? Because the alternative is a world that's benign, it's okay. The other method we call the Silverman strategy, So we have the Seinfeld strategy and the Silverman strategy. You, Matt, are a Silverman strategy person, right? So what Sarah Silverman starts out with is the thing that's wrong, and then she tries to find a way to make it okay. And when she's successful, she gets huge laughs, right? Because plays on these big violations in the world. But when she fails, people are aghast, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
And that seems like you were to put you in one or the other strategy. That's and you're comfortable playing in that world, if I'm hearing you correctly, because I mean, this is just me trying to explain this, having met you for 45 minutes, is if you've had people shoot at you and try to blow you up and drill, sergeants screaming in your face for looking at them the wrong way, if someone's a little uncomfortable because you told a joke that didn't land right, well...
Yeah, exactly.
It's not too bad, right?
Only people's feelings are getting hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a tragedy.
Right, yeah, in that way. So I always wrap with a couple questions that so unpopular opinions. You seem like a kind of guy who has many unpopular opinions.
Virtually all of them would be considered unpopular.
And you're married?
Yes, I'm married.
Do you have an unpopular opinion with your partner?
No, I mean, ironically, it's my second marriage. We just got married.
Congrats.
6 months ago, actually, and she's much younger than I, and she's from Boston, and I'm from I grew up in Iowa, but then I moved to Tennessee in the South. And so we have real diametric ideas, and I mean, I even used to joke I'd never marry some people everyone I met from Boston I hated, you know. And I actually
the nickname is Massholes for folks who haven't heard that.
I have an Italian friend I went to visit. She has a PhD in foreign language and literature, and she asked me the nuances of American language, blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. I told her about Boston, just go to a car, drive my car, go to the party, just joking around. And but I was also like, and everyone I met from Boston, I hate them, they're as jerks. And she was like, my boyfriend's best friend, his wife is American. We should go meet them. And they're like, oh yeah, okay. Where are you from? I'm like, oh, Iowa, Tennessee. She's like, oh, I'm from Boston. Like even the Italians that didn't speak English, oh. But then I ended up actually marrying someone from Boston. My point is that we are a lot different, but I think maybe I'm a convincing person that she's become much more. Not to label myself, I guess, but you could probably assume, since I spent time in the Army, more conservative, more central. I spent a lot of time traveling the world, and I spent a lot of time in combat and flying helicopters, and you don't have time for nonsense. You don't have time for things that don't really matter. Okay. So, I like to think my belief system is refined in so much as that certain things don't bother me too, and so most of my opinions, I guess, are unpopular, especially Europeans and things that I encounter here. And being American and ex-military, they already know I'm some kind of imperialist. I already have an identity in their mind before I even open my mouth and probably confirm it.
I see. Yeah. What are you reading, watching, or listening to these days that you think's really superb?
I mean, a lot of things. I listen to lots of economic podcasts from economists, but one thing, and it's kind of ironic that I just started listening to, it's called Vet TV. Okay. And these things we're talking about, and it's this really, really disturbing veteran humor, but it's
called Vet, V-E-T?
Yeah, Vet TV.
Where is that broadcast?
It's on Facebook. They have a Facebook page, and they put blurbs of their, previews of their things, and some are 5 or 6 minutes long. And then they have their own channel too you subscribe to. Okay. And it's really amazing, it's nothing's quite made me laugh like that in a long time. Okay. And it is really terrible stuff, I mean, one episode, they're joking, the two soldiers are joking about, Joe, he's an asshole, He's like, I wish he'd get capped. And they're like, yeah, but we want him to die or just be crippled. Okay. He's like, I say crippled. He's like, nah, I wish he'd be dead. I'd hate to be 20 years from now, be at the VFW and see, or downtown at the bar and see him getting free beers in his wheelchair,
And so are these sketches?
Yeah.
Or interviews?
Yeah, they're sketches.
I see.
There's one where, there's a gunshot rings out and they all rush in and he's like, oh, like what happened? And the interpreter's laying there shot. He's like, well, the interpreter, he tried to stab me. Actually, he did. And he shows his back. There's like a knife wound in it,
Okay.
It's just ridiculousness, but it's if you're looking to see the sardonic or dark humor of military people, they've done a frightening job of it. It's really good. But yeah, that's the main things. I drive a lot here to work because the airfield's away, and so yeah, lots of economic podcasts and that TV. Yeah,
nice. Last question. What is the secret to success that everybody knows but can't seem to do?
The secret to success is risk. It's taking risks.
All right. You know what? You sound like, I hate to bring him up again, you sound like Brandon.
Hopefully I mentored some. And he, of course, mentored me some as well.
Tell me more. So why is it that the secret to success that everybody knows but can't seem to do is taking a risk?
Taking a risk. Why? Because I'm here in Dubai now, and it's I've been pretty successful, in my military career, and now I'm here, and I have a lucrative job, and it's Dubai, so I have a nice house, a pool in the back, and I have like my profile pic. I have my next to a Ferrari, and just ridiculous. It's Dubai, and people are like, "You're lucky, you're lucky." Even my mother, I took a picture of me in the pool, My mom's like, "Oh, so lucky." And it's like, yeah, but it took me 40 years to get here, And my point is that people say you're lucky. I said, no, of course there's an element of luck, but I took risk. I left my home to join the army. I didn't do anything magical. I just joined the army. That's it. And I worked hard and I had an objective and I didn't stop. And I took risks. I put in my packet. I worked hard. A lot of people, my friends back home, are you lucky? Well, I was studying books 6 foot tall about helicopters and aerodynamics and the human eye and all the nonsense you learn in flight school while you guys were partying, and smoking weed. And now, it's not luck. It's an element of luck, but it's risks. You take risks. You leave home, you go fight wars. You come to Dubai,
right?
After all I'd been through in my life, I left. I could have stayed in the army and been quite comfortable as a senior pilot. No one really made me do too much. I showed up. I flew. I evaluated people. So I'm like, hey, I need you to do everything, and I'm going to show up and make sure you do it right. And that's it. It was not terribly hard at that level. Could have stayed there, but for some reason I take this risk to go to this Dubai, to some Middle Eastern country. I'll be honest with you. I knew Emiratis, but I knew about Dubai, but until you get here, you don't understand. I didn't know if we were going to get here and we were going to be wearing abayas and there's lots of rules and controls on alcohol and men and women living together and things like that.
Right.
In society, it's their culture, and I respect that. But my point is, it's a risk. You go to this crazy place, and it paid off. And that's, I think, what you'll find with most successful people. They've taken risks, and they failed, and they take the risks again.
Yeah, to me, I certainly believe this because, you were talking about correlates earlier, right? So risk and reward is correlated. Right, so if you want something that's rewarding in the world, fame, fortune, whatever that might be, profound experiences, that means you have to take on some risk, because if there wasn't risk associated with it, then it wouldn't be valuable, right? Because everybody would have it.
Absolutely.
In that way. And so, I certainly, as someone, who studies how people make decisions, right? We tend to represent people's decisions as gambles, with probabilities, with wins and losses, and you can either balance a gamble either with probability or by making the gain balanced by a greater loss, and so in that way, I definitely agree. Well, thank you for taking the risk to get on this podcast. I know it came out of the blue, it happened fast, and I really appreciate it, Matt.
Well, thank you for having me. It was very interesting. I really, really enjoyed it.
Great.
And I enjoyed it. You don't think about humor, and you caught it for the first time. I I thought about it, so thanks.
Oh, that's great. All right.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to visit petermcgraw.org for more information about our guest, show notes, and social media links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with others. Join Dr. Peter McGraw next week for another fun, fascinating conversation on I'm Not Joking.